There is a certain kind of mind that does not merely exist on the surface of things, a mind that questions, analyzes, feels, and observes the hidden layers beneath reality. These are the deep thinkers, individuals who see what most overlook, who listen to the silence between words, and who perceive meaning where others see none. Their minds are not in a rush to conclude. They wander, they dive, they dissect, and they connect. To understand the psychology of deep thinkers is to explore what makes their consciousness so distinct, why they feel differently, think differently, and often struggle in a world that rewards speed over depth. Deep thinkers are both blessed and burdened by the richness of their inner worlds, and their psychology reveals both brilliance and complexity in equal measure. Deep thinkers leave much of their lives inside their own minds. Their thoughts do not merely skim across the surface of experience, they dive beneath it, questioning, analyzing, and interpreting even the most ordinary moments. This heightened introspection is both their gift and their burden. They are constantly aware of what they think, why they think it, and how those thoughts shape their perception of the world. For them, thinking is not a passive act. It is an exploration, a form of self-discovery. Every emotion becomes a question, every experience a lesson, every silence an opportunity to observe what is happening within. Psychologically, this deep self-awareness develops from a strong reflective capacity. Unlike most people who experience their emotions and move on, deep thinkers pause. They examine their inner world with precision, seeking patterns in their reactions and motives. When they feel anger, they do not simply express it. They ask what lies beneath it. When they experience joy, they analyze its origin and meaning. This kind of self-observation allows them to understand themselves profoundly, often far earlier in life than others. They are capable of identifying hidden motives, fears, and desires that most would rather ignore. However, this constant introspection can also turn inward too sharply, becoming a double-edged sword. The same mind that seeks understanding can create endless loops of doubt. Deep thinkers often question themselves to the point of paralysis, dissecting every decision and emotion until clarity fades into confusion. They can become trapped in analysis, mistaking reflection for progress. Their minds, while powerful, can become heavy with self-criticism and existential uncertainty. They know themselves so deeply that they sometimes struggle to escape themselves. This heightened awareness also extends to how they view others. Deep thinkers read people like complex texts, noticing subtleties in tone, body language, and silence. They are attuned to emotional undercurrents that others overlook. While this gives them a unique empathy and understanding, it can also make them overly sensitive to the moods and intentions of those around them. They may absorb the emotions of others, feeling them as their own. This empathetic awareness can be draining, leaving them in need of solitude to recalibrate. Philosophically, introspection is the foundation of wisdom. Socrates famously declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Deep thinkers live this truth every day. Their constant reflection allows them to grow, adapt, and understand life beyond appearances. They do not seek comfort in ignorance. They would rather face the discomfort of truth. Their minds are laboratories of thought, continuously testing beliefs, questioning values, and refining understanding. Yet, what sets deep thinkers apart is not their intelligence, but their honesty. They are willing to confront the parts of themselves that others deny. They accept their darkness as well as their light. They do not fear silence or solitude because they know both are necessary for growth. Through introspection, they develop authenticity, a rare alignment between thought, emotion, and action. They become their own mirrors, constantly polishing the reflection until it reveals not perfection, but truth. Deep thinkers possess an extraordinary sensitivity to the world around them. They feel more, notice more, and are more deeply affected by the emotional and sensory details of life. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is an expanded awareness, a capacity to perceive life in layers, textures, and tones that others overlook. When most people pass through the world distracted, deep thinkers pause to absorb it. A fleeting expression on someone's face, the subtle melancholy in a piece of music, or the quiet beauty of a sunset can move them profoundly. They are tuned to the emotional and existential frequencies of life, and this attunement gives their inner world remarkable depth. Psychologically, this heightened sensitivity is linked to what researchers call high openness to experience. It is a trait that allows the mind to process more complexity, more nuance, and more emotion. Deep thinkers do not simply react, they feel in high definition. When joy comes, it overwhelms them. When sadness visits, it echoes deeply within them. They cannot numb themselves to the world without losing what makes them who they are. This emotional richness fuels creativity, empathy, and insight, but it also makes them vulnerable to pain. The same sensitivity that enables them to see beauty also exposes them to the rawness of human suffering. Because of this, deep thinkers often oscillate between awe and anguish. They might find deep meaning in something small, a word, a glance, a moment, yet be crushed by the weight of human cruelty or injustice. The ordinary person may shield themselves from such feelings by distraction, denial, or emotional detachment, but the deep thinker cannot. They see through illusions too easily. They recognize the absurdity and tragedy intertwined with human life, and it touches them profoundly. This sensitivity often drives them to seek solitude, not because they reject people, but because they need space to process the intensity of what they perceive. Philosophically, their sensitivity makes them closer to truth. To feel deeply is to live deeply. It is to exist with one's entire being rather than merely function through habit and routine. However, it is also exhausting. Many deep thinkers feel out of place in a society that rewards speed, simplicity, and superficiality. Their tendency to pause, reflect, and feel deeply can make them seem detached or distant. Yet internally, they are far from indifferent. They are overwhelmed by everything they notice. Their empathy is profound. They can sense unspoken pain in others and are often drawn to help, comfort, or understand. This makes them natural healers, counselors, and creators. Through art, philosophy, or conversation, they attempt to express the depth of their perception and offer meaning where others see none. Ultimately, the sensitivity of a deep thinker is a sacred burden. It isolates them, but it also elevates them. It allows them to see beauty where others see nothing, and to find truth where others find only noise. Their hearts are open wounds and open windows pained by the world, yet illuminated by it. Deep thinkers possess an unrelenting desire to seek meaning behind everything. To them, life cannot be lived on the surface. Every experience, thought, and emotion must be examined, dissected, and understood. They are not content with accepting things as they are. Instead, they continuously ask why, not as a sign of rebellion, but as an act of existential curiosity. This constant search for meaning defines their psychology. It is both their greatest strength and their most difficult burden. When most people experience a moment, they simply move through it. A deep thinker, however, pauses and analyzes what it means not just to them, but to the nature of existence itself. A simple conversation can lead to reflections about human connection. A disappointment can evolve into a meditation on fate, impermanence, or the fragility of hope. Their mind never stops turning. It is always peeling back the layers of experience to find the truth hidden beneath. This is not intellectual arrogance, it is a spiritual hunger. They want to understand the reason why things happen, what purpose suffering serves, and how meaning can be created in a world that often feels indifferent. This search for meaning can lead to moments of profound clarity and transcendence. When a deep thinker finally grasps a new truth, it can feel like a light breaking through darkness. They may feel connected to something vast and eternal, a sense that life, though chaotic, carries patterns and purpose. This is what makes their reflections so transformative. They have the power to articulate truths that others feel but cannot express. Their writing, art, or ideas often touch people deeply because they resonate with unspoken universal experiences. However, this same drive can also lead to existential suffering. The more a deep thinker searches, the more they encounter the limits of understanding. They realize that life is filled with paradoxes, that meaning and meaninglessness coexist, that joy and pain are inseparable, that truth is often hidden behind illusion. This awareness can be heavy, sometimes leading to isolation or melancholy. They feel alienated from a world that seems content with shallow pleasures and convenient lies. While others are satisfied with distractions, the deep thinker feels restless, longing for authenticity and truth. Psychologically, this pattern reflects what Viktor Frankl called the will to meaning. Deep thinkers are not primarily driven by pleasure or power, but by the need to find purpose. Their inner world becomes a battlefield where they wrestle with questions that have no final answers. Yet, in that struggle lies their vitality. They may not find absolute truth, but the act of seeking gives their life direction. In essence, deep thinkers are philosophers of the everyday. Their minds transform ordinary life into a journey toward understanding. They are not content with merely existing. They must know what existence means. And while that search may never end, it keeps them awake in a world that often sleeps. Deep thinkers often find their greatest peace not in the company of others, but in solitude. To them, being alone is not a state of loneliness, but a sanctuary of clarity. In silence, the noise of the world fades, and their thoughts, so often drowned out by external chatter, begin to align, breathe, and take shape. Solitude becomes a laboratory for their minds, a sacred space where ideas can be examined freely without judgment or distraction. While others may crave constant stimulation, deep thinkers are nourished by quiet. It is in the absence of noise that they feel most alive. Their preference for solitude stems from an inner need for reflection. In a world that glorifies busyness and constant connection, a deep thinker sees the danger of mental clutter. Every conversation, notification, or interaction leaves a residue in the mind, and only through solitude can they cleanse it, allowing their consciousness to return to its original depth. This is not escapism. It is an act of mental preservation. Solitude gives them room to process the world, to question their emotions, and to untangle complex ideas. It is where they confront themselves honestly, away from the masks society expects them to wear. However, solitude also brings its own set of challenges. The same silence that nourishes the deep thinker can sometimes turn into an echo chamber of thought. When left alone too long, reflection can become rumination. Questions can spiral into self-doubt, and introspection can transform into isolation. The deep thinker often walks a thin line between contemplation and melancholy, between solitude that heals and loneliness that consumes. Yet even in their darker moments, they recognize that these depths are necessary, for only by descending into silence can they ascend toward wisdom. Psychologically, solitude strengthens their inner sense of self. Away from external validation, they begin to define themselves through their own understanding rather than through social comparison. They become more authentic, less reactive, and more grounded in their values. Solitude trains them to think independently, to question without fear, and to hold convictions that may not align with popular opinion. It allows them to detach from the herd mentality that dominates much of human behavior, and to cultivate a self that is both introspective and resilient. In the modern world, where solitude is often mistaken for weakness, the deep thinker stands as a quiet rebellion. They remind us that true understanding cannot emerge in the noise of constant activity, but in the stillness of awareness. Their time alone is not wasted. It is where they create, heal, and understand. Solitude, for them, is the birthplace of clarity. It is the place where their deepest thoughts come alive, and where their mind rediscovers its natural rhythm, slow, deep, and beautifully unhurried. Deep thinkers have an intrinsic resistance to blindly accepting what society labels as truth. They are philosophical by nature, not in the academic sense, but in the existential one. Every assumption, every social rule, every moral judgment becomes a subject for examination. They cannot simply accept that something is, because it has always been. Instead, they seek the hidden architecture of ideas, the invisible beliefs that shape human behavior, politics, and culture. This psychological trait makes them natural questioners of the world, often misunderstood as rebels or cynics, when in truth, they are seekers of authenticity. From an early age, deep thinkers notice contradictions in how people live. They see societies preaching morality but rewarding greed, glorifying intelligence while suppressing creativity, and promoting individuality yet punishing those who think differently. These inconsistencies disturb them deeply because their minds crave coherence, a unity between word and deed, ideal and reality. When that harmony is missing, they begin to deconstruct the entire system in search of truth. Their questions are not meant to destroy, but to rebuild. They dismantle illusions to find what is real beneath them. Psychologically, this need to question arises from their cognitive depth. Deep thinkers possess high levels of critical thinking and metacognition, the ability to think about their own thinking. They are aware of how biases, emotions, and cultural conditioning influence the human mind. Therefore, when they encounter an idea, they don't just ask, "Is it true?" They ask, "Why do I believe it? Who benefits from this belief? What assumptions lie beneath it?" This mental habit grants them freedom from collective illusions, but it also isolates them. Because most people prefer comfort over truth, the deep thinker often finds themselves standing alone in their pursuit. Philosophically, they share kinship with thinkers like Socrates, Nietzsche, and Kierkegaard, individuals who challenged norms not for fame, but for the sake of truth itself. Like these figures, deep thinkers live in tension with society. They understand its necessity, yet see its limitations. They know that progress, whether intellectual or moral, begins when someone dares to question the obvious. But this same clarity can make existence heavier for them. Seeing the mechanisms of deception and conformity can lead to disillusionment. They realize how much of life is performance, how people wear masks to survive, and this awareness, while enlightening, can be painful. Yet, for all its burdens, this questioning nature is the deep thinker's greatest strength. It is what drives civilization forward. It is what allows art, science, and philosophy to evolve. Without such minds, humanity would remain trapped in dogma, repeating the same errors for eternity. The deep thinker's refusal to conform is not arrogance. It is devotion to truth, to integrity, and to the freedom of the human mind. To think deeply, to question sincerely, is to honor consciousness itself, to live not as a product of the world, but as its awake observer. Deep thinkers are not interested in collecting people. They are interested in connection. While the world values popularity, the illusion of belonging through numbers and visibility, deep thinkers measure relationships by depth, not quantity. They would rather have one soul who understands them than 100 who merely hear them. Their psychology is wired for authenticity. They crave genuine emotional and intellectual resonance, something beyond small talk and social masks. This is why they often appear reserved, private, or selective in their associations. It's not arrogance, it's sensitivity. They cannot engage meaningfully with what feels shallow, for their minds and hearts are built for depth. When a deep thinker connects with someone, it is not a casual experience, it is a merging of inner worlds. They listen intently, observe subtle details, and remember words that others would forget. To them, communication is not just exchange, but communion. They want to understand the other person's soul, their fears, contradictions, and hopes. Yet this same intensity can make relationships difficult. Because they give so much thought and energy to others, they often expect the same depth in return. When it is not reciprocated, they can feel alienated, unseen, or emotionally drained. Psychologically, this preference for deep connection stems from a heightened awareness of meaning. Just as they seek truth in ideas, they seek truth in people. They are acutely aware of emotional dishonesty they can sense when someone is pretending, flattering, or performing. Such falseness feels like noise to them, interrupting the harmony of authentic communication. Hence, they tend to withdraw from social scenes that thrive on gossip, appearance, or competition. Their solitude is not a rejection of others, but a defense of their emotional energy. However, their desire for depth also makes them vulnerable to loneliness. Because few people share their level of introspection or sensitivity, they can feel like outsiders in most groups. This is one of the paradoxes of the deep thinker's psychology. They long for connection, yet struggle to find it in a world that fears vulnerability. They are often misunderstood as cold or distant, when in truth, they feel too deeply, so deeply that superficial relationships feel unbearable. But when a deep thinker does find a genuine bond, it becomes something rare and profound. Their loyalty runs deep, their empathy knows no bounds, and their conversations with such individuals often transcend the ordinary. These connections rejuvenate them, providing the emotional nourishment they rarely find elsewhere. Through them, they discover that even in a shallow world, depth still exists. It just requires patience, honesty, and courage to reach it. Ultimately, the psychology of the deep thinker in relationships mirrors their entire world. View authenticity above all. They do not seek company to escape loneliness. They seek understanding to escape meaninglessness. For them, connection is sacred, a meeting of two minds unafraid to face the truth of who they are. The mind of a deep thinker is both a blessing and a burden, a paradox of brilliance and heaviness. It allows them to see life with extraordinary clarity, to perceive connections that others overlook, to draw wisdom from pain and beauty from chaos. Yet that very same depth often isolates them, weighs them down, and fills them with thoughts too vast for words. Their gift is their curse: to understand too much, to feel too deeply, to see the truth too clearly. And while this inner richness grants them wisdom, it also exposes them to the quiet suffering of awareness. Deep thinkers are not easily deceived by appearances. They see beyond what is shown, they read between words, sense the unsaid, and feel the undercurrents of human behavior. They know that behind every smile may hide fear, and behind every confident assertion may lie doubt. This insight into the human condition makes them compassionate but also restless. They carry within them the knowledge that most people live unconsciously, trapped in illusions and mechanical routines. They long to wake others up, to open their eyes to truth, but often people resist. Thus, the deep thinker's wisdom becomes a source of alienation. They are surrounded by many but understood by few. Psychologically, this duality manifests as both strength and fragility. Their awareness makes them insightful, empathetic, and creative, yet it also leaves them vulnerable to existential anxiety. They cannot distract themselves easily or believe in comforting illusions. Their minds dissect every emotion, every choice, every moment, and sometimes that introspection becomes overwhelming. They see life as an endless series of questions, but answers are always incomplete. This tension between knowing and not knowing gives rise to a subtle melancholy that runs through their existence, not sadness in the ordinary sense, but a deep awareness of life's impermanence and complexity. And yet, it is precisely this weight that gives their lives meaning. Their suffering is not pointless. It becomes the soil from which understanding grows. Their solitude, their questioning, their pain, all of it shapes them into individuals capable of seeing truth where others see nothing. The deep thinker learns that to be awake is to hurt, but also to live fully. The darkness they carry is not a flaw, it is the price of perception. They understand that one cannot see the light of truth without walking through the shadows of uncertainty. In the end, the deep thinker's life is not easy, but it is profound. They may never find perfect peace, but they find depth. They may not be understood, but they understand. Their burden is great, but so is their insight, and it is through that insight that they elevate the human spirit. For while most people float across the surface of existence, the deep thinker dives, and in doing so, discovers that even in the darkest depths, there is wisdom, beauty, and truth.